Hey everyone, in this podcast, I have an awesome conversation with Chris and Sara Goede from the Maxwell leadership team. And they were doing a parenting night at our church, and we filmed this podcast right after. And so in this podcast, we talk a lot about these value cards. And so I figured I should probably preface the conversation by telling you about this cool exercise they brought us through at the parenting night. So basically, they gave us probably about 60 cards, almost like a deck of cards that had a different value on each card. It could be leadership, it could be faith, it could be integrity, it could be honesty, and there's many different value cards. And they got us to pick our favorite values, I think 25 to start with. And after we picked our 25 top values, they brought us, said to pare it down to 10. And then when we picked our top 10 out of that list, they asked us to pare it down again to 5. We had to pick our 5 favorite values, the most, what we value most in life. And it was very difficult because we had to really see what truly was our value. So you're going to hear us talk about that in this episode quite often. So that's what it was. It's us paring it down to our 5 core values. It was hard, but I know you're going to enjoy this episode, so take a listen.
You've got to be willing to do the work. We said the first person you have to grow is yourself. The first person you have to lead is you. That's why a lot of people don't do it.
Yep.
Because they're not willing to go through what it takes to change to become what your kid needs. Yeah.
Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Forge, we have an amazing guest today. Over the weekend at church, we had a parenting night with Sara and Chris Goede, which we're very, very excited to have on the podcast. And so, on Saturday night, we talked all about the 5 levels of leadership.
We did.
And you do a lot of that, right, with John Maxwell?
Yeah, and the fun part was that we really talked about it in the parenting lens. I spend a lot of my time on behalf of John Maxwell in the corporate sector working with teams and cultures. And so she actually asked me last night when we got back to the hotel after we were done, and she said, hey, is it as enjoyable for you to do it in the parenting lens as it is when you do it in front of the corporate teams? Because I love what I get to do on behalf of John. And I was like, yeah, you know what? Actually, it is. It's actually a little bit more enjoyable because it's impacting, we're hoping, the children that are in the homes that's going to outlive all of us and, businessmen and women, no pun intended.
Yeah.
Sometimes they just listen to it and throw it out the window, right? Hopefully as families. And so, I have been in John's world for a long time, and it's really what I'm passionate about is that model, and it's applicable to business world at home and parenting and all that stuff. So, yes, I have eaten, breathed, and slept with the 5 levels of leadership on my mind as a leader for a long time. Yeah.
Well, and that's what I feel like. I called John one time with a question, and I was like, I'm having troubles organizing time, priorities. You said he doesn't believe in the word balance, so I didn't use the word balance.
That's
on
good.
That one, but,
yeah, that's good.
And he basically said 80% of what you need to learn is from the 5 levels of leadership, and whatever doesn't cover in the 5 levels of leadership, he said the Pareto principle.
Yeah.
He said the 80-20 rule.
That's right.
And that was his answer back. So that I just studied as much as I could, both of those 2 topics. And that's what, I mean, I don't have a lot of people coming over to me all the time about leadership principles, but whenever they do, I'm always just like, 5 levels of leadership is like, it's your rubric right in the beginning. And what I loved about Saturday night is you guys attached that to the family. Yeah. And then even sitting in the parenting night, it was so easily just translatable to marriage too, and everything else. So it's like it's a very fluid teaching that can kind of go where you need it to go, and the principles seem to work. So I guess when on Saturday night we talked about parenting, you have 2 lovely kids that are now adults, and you guys are empty nesters now, which is a new way of life.
Amazing.
I know.
Yes.
That's
don't
crazy.
say that too much in case one of the kids watch.
Yeah, I know. Don't send this
it.
to them. And I think that's the beautiful part. But at what point? So you've been with John Maxwell for 29 years, and how long did it take for him to have the 5 levels of leadership out, or 5 levels of influence? You guys said too.
So that's a really good point. Let me come back to that. I want to talk about influence because Sara would always say to me, she'd be like, "Man, like that, we should be teaching that in the home because we call it 5 levels of leadership, and we don't necessarily think about leadership in the home outside of the structure of, hey, I want to lead my family, but it's really about influence is really what it's all about. And isn't that what is really about doing life with people is having influence? And I'll say this really quick, with the right motive.
Yes.
Because there's a very fine line between influence and manipulation.
That's right.
And that fine line sits right in the middle, and it's called motive. What is your motive behind it? And so she would say all the time, and I'd love for you just to talk a little bit about this. If, man, the principles work.
Yeah.
Whether it's in the corporate world or whether it's at home or whether it's a relationship with your sister or your brother or your mom or your dad or your grandparents. And so she would say all the time, she'd be like, man, why do we come home from work as people and just completely throw out everything we're learning every day at
That's
work?
true.
Yeah.
And so that's really how it started, around that influence model.
Yeah, I think for me, we were talking about this yesterday on our flight. He was showing me this book proposal that somebody is looking at doing with him, and it was these 12 points. And he wanted me to read through the proposal. He'd be a part of it, see if it's something I thought he should be a part of. And I get done, I'm like, I can turn this into a parenting book. Like, the 12 principles are so fantastic. We're writing it for this. But I just have this lens in which even John's content, I've read several of his books throughout our marriage. And each time I read them, my heart and my calling was mostly at home, nursing background, leading Bible studies, women's groups, participating in women's ministry. That's where I was able to utilize those things. But the more we got dialed in on our intentionality of influence and me really grasping my calling of raising these kids for Christ,
right,
and wanting to give them the best that I could, I just naturally absorbed what I was learning, and I think turned it into the kids without even knowing that I was doing it in the moment, until I felt that calling for God to say, hey, I want you to do these 5 levels and turn it into a parenting thing. And then I realized, my gosh, like, this has just been something I've been doing without knowing that I was even doing it. And so now I can look at content and I can look at books and I can hear something and think, man, I could turn that into a parenting principle in a hot minute. But we don't do that most of the time. We think about how we want to lead people outside of the home, or we think about how we want to raise children, but we don't necessarily think about how we want to develop the home.
Right.
And for me, I was the CEO of Team Goede.
Yeah.
And so the difference is I can't fire the people that are part of it.
She tried to fire me, by the way. I got a couple stories for you.
That makes sense.
I can't have a reorg, you know, and they've got their cubicles and they don't always keep them clean. And, you know, we have the rules around the house that we want.
Matter of fact, you'll enjoy this. So being the CEO of the Goede household, we tried to have family dinners together as often as we could. And she'd be like, hey, tell me about your day. What time we're going to have dinner? And so I can get ready and be prepared. And I was like, 6 o'clock. So one thing happens or another, and I'm a little bit late. And I can remember years and years ago, she's like, hey, let me ask you a question. How would you feel if somebody was 20 minutes late to your meeting today? And I was like, she goes, well, that's how I feel, because you're 20 minutes late for dinner and we're ready. Yeah. And I was like, oh yeah, you're right. Like this is your baby. This is your household.
Yep.
And the influence principles cross over.
Yeah. And that was a true story. In fact, I'm even going to expand on it just a bit.
Well, we don't have to.
Because I clearly remember, I had a wonderful, we talked about this, Elmer and Ruth Towns. And Ruth was this fantastic mentor of mine. And she just taught me so much practical information. And one of the things she encouraged me with before we got married was that men really learn well with analogy. And so he literally that day had been stood up for lunch and he was explaining it to me.
Yeah.
I see an opportunity. Yep. I'm going to seize an opportunity, right?
Yeah.
And so I did. And I just was like, hey, the 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes that you were waiting, hey, that's what I do. And for me, providing dinner for him was a way of loving him for going to work every day and doing what he did every day. And food was kind of a huge expression of love in our family. And I would work hard at being on time, ready to serve him as soon as he walked in. And so, that was a fun little analogy that we got to have. But it's putting the practical principles into play, right?
Yeah.
And so when I took the 5 levels of leadership and started writing it into a book that will hopefully be published, and started creating workshop content out of it. It just was a natural flow for us. I had watched him and listened to him deal with it for about 10 years before I even started to dabble into it. And so it's just been a huge blessing. I think it's incredibly practical. I think it's something, in fact, we, a couple in the church this morning had stopped us, and the dad was just chatting with us,
good.
and he had even said, this is some of the most practical parenting content that can be used for anybody, right? It's not a narrow-minded philosophy.
Yes, it's true.
And so what's great about it is
or age specific either.
No,
which is
not at
nice
all.
too.
And,
Because he said, you come to these things, you're either going to get one or another, and they're probably telling you how to do this, X, Y, and Z, and whether it really fits into our beliefs. And he goes, well, I was really just super impressed that it was about the people. It was about the little people, right? And it was about, hey, this is a philosophy and simple that we could actually live out. Yeah, now go and live that out the best that you can as a parent.
For your story.
Yeah,
Customize
awesome.
it for your family. Just like it doesn't work one size fits all for every organization.
No.
Right.
Right. It looks different for every corporation that he works with. It's going to look different for every home also.
Well, you guys did so well. I had multiple texts that night that said, thank you so much for bringing them in. And I was like,
It's so good.
I'm like, yeah, that it's so amazing. We really, really appreciated all that. And
It's fun.
It's, it is. And it's sad too. Sometimes the church is not very good at realizing the just how important getting better. Well, it's a lot of the lid, right? I think is what John
Yes.
always says, right?
Yes.
So it's like they don't realize that, I guess, a lot of the time. It's like, well, you're not going to be a better parent than what you choose to build
be.
into
That's
yourself,
right.
right? So
That's
it's
right.
like, so there's lots of people that are like, oh, I wish there was those people were there, or I wish that they're like, we have a big church and turnout was good, but it's always good. You always laugh at that, and I always try to, even when I advertise these things, I'm like, and we expect you. We're not saying you're the bad parents if you show up to this night. You're the parents that really care and want to make an effort into the kids. And I think most parenting advice, a lot of the time, or when you bring someone in, parents can feel like, what's the word? They can feel like it's too late now. Like, you gave us some good stuff, but it's too late. My kid's
really
16, and that's what I loved about what you guys had to say, was that it's you can apply this now. And you said a comment on Saturday night that was very good. You said at 22 you're going to wish you started at 12, and at 12 you're going to wish you started at 2, and so it's like, what does that mean? Start now. It doesn't matter. Like, just start getting in there. And there's something really, really cool about that. And what you guys said before about marriage and getting home, that was a big one for me and Jess. Huge. Because I am bad with going, I'll be home by 10. And then not home by 10 because, but then I justify it because, well, I was at church and I had to pray with a girl who's battling cancer, and she was never ever upset at me staying at church too late. It was just tell me your right time. That's all. Like, if it's 11, it's 11. It's 12, it's midnight. You're fine. But there's an expectation that's set, right? And then, like you said, you work very hard to meet the expectation, thinking that it's a partnership agreement of that time. And then he waltzes in 30 minutes late saying, hey, honey, I'm home. And you're like, well, you're late. So it's just like,
I'm like, where's dinner? And she's like, we already ate, right? Like, if you want it, warm it up. It's in the microwave.
Warm it up, baby.
That's right.
So back to your original question, though, the methodology, the model itself, you asked, I've been with John. We've been with John for a while. It was the first chapter of a book called Developing the Leader Within You that he wrote that. So if you go back, and now it's Developing the Leader Within You 2.0, it's still the first chapter. And he talks about this model. And it's really based around influencing other people. Because we believe that leadership is influence, and influence is leadership. And so John always uses the word influence, because that's really what leading people is all about. So he wrote the first chapter of Developing the Leader Within You was on the 5 levels model of influence. And it got so much traction that they wanted him to write an entire book. And so he did. And that's how it evolved from one chapter into that book. And so that book content has probably been out for 25 years, 24 years. I know. Isn't that crazy? It's been a while.
Well, no, that's what was my follow-up question to that was, at what point in your raising of your kids did you realize you were doing them? You know what I mean? Or was it
This is interesting. No, Sarah, I'll let you answer.
I think it was when I was actually writing the book and we were talking about it. Because the Lord had just said to me, hey, well, John was speaking, and we were at a Live to Lead, and I'm sitting in the sanctuary of the building with somebody else, and we were mentoring a kid, and he was
Yeah,
there
he
to
was
have
with
the
us.
experience
Yeah.
of the event. And so we had taken him around, introduced him to everybody, and went to all the different sessions, and John was given the final session. And John says, hey, there are people out there that God has called you to something, and you know it. You're just sitting on it waiting for the perfect time. And I've always had this fire in my belly for something, but God's just never revealed what it was. And I felt like that day he was saying to me, hey, do this. And I was like, well, what is this?
Yeah.
Because I have no clarity. And he just randomly, I really do believe he spoke to me clearly. I want you to take the 5 levels of leadership and turn it into a parenting thing. And so later on that evening, I was like, hey, what do you think I do this? And he's like, I think it's a great idea. And as soon as I started writing it, I was just
all these
blown
aha
away.
moments,
There were
yeah.
so many aha moments of, I had no idea. If you had said to me before that moment, you are practicing the 5 levels of leadership at home, in full transparency, I couldn't have told you what the 5 levels were. Like, really, seriously, that
Yep.
was his stuff.
Yep.
Right? And so I am just doing what I feel like is the right stuff at home. There was no philosophy that I was following. Yes, I've absorbed books over the years with reading his and other people's. I'm a huge parenting book reader. So I have absorbed content and had self-growth and development. But to say that I knew that I was actually trying to build legacy with my children and how I was going about that and what the Lord had to take me through. I was not a natural bend in parenting for relationship building. Level 2 I had to really learn that. I was a very level 3 mom. I wanted to produce. Because I said so, I wanted to go from 1 to 3. And I didn't realize the value of building relational equity with your children and getting their buy-in. I didn't have parents who cared about my buy-in, so I didn't know that that was something you were supposed to do. Authority doesn't have buy-in. It's just immediate obedience because it's mom, dad, kid,
Yeah.
right?
Level 1.
Yeah, it was totally.
Because I said so. Yeah.
But that worked for us, right? Not that there wasn't something I wanted more of with my mom and dad, but we knew what the rules were. We followed those rules. And so I learned really early on, I wasn't getting the connection with my kids that I wanted. And it boiled down to I wasn't having relational equity with them. But I didn't know that's what it was at the time. I just knew I needed to learn to connect with them.
But so it's interesting. I just thought about this. We talk all the time about in life, whether it's leadership, spiritual journey, financial journey, you're the average of the 5 people that you're closest to. Here's an interesting thought. Like, we didn't really know it and aware of it. We couldn't put words to it. But what was happening was because we have been in John's environment for so long, and that content was a part of just everything that we were doing and listening to and a part of, and conversations with John and reading books and all that stuff. Because we were blessed to be in that type of opportunity, we became a part
Like
of
that,
that,
yeah,
right?
without even knowing
so
it.
it's just I'm thinking about this, like even just challenging those that are listening or watching and thinking about like, what is the group of people you're surrounding yourself with? We talked last night about it takes a village, by the way, to parent. Who's in the village?
Yep.
Who are you allowing in the village, and who are you kicking out of the village
Yeah.
to be able to say, okay, this is how we're going to do things. And I think just by being in and around that growth environment all the time, and the influence and understanding that and the power of people, I think that's what led to us to parent like that. And when we got to the place where she felt the calling and started writing the book and looked back, she's like, oh my goodness, we actually did this by working through the levels of influence with our children. And it just, she wrote the entire manuscript in no time because it was just like God took over the pen and paper and just writing.
It's passionate for me. John also will say, what breaks your heart? And I've always been involved in women's ministry. I've always had a calling to come alongside of women. But really what breaks my heart is just the broken family. It just really hits me. I hurt for the kids that you can just see are begging for attention.
Yeah.
Or even the kids who are begging for boundaries.
Yep.
Begging for belief,
Yep.
begging for something to believe in. I see the parents feel like they can't do it. They don't know how to do it. And the devil just slides into that, right? Louis Giglio did a fantastic series on don't give the enemy a seat at your table.
That's good.
And I feel like when we are intentional and purposeful about what we're doing for our family and to our family and with our family, we're giving him the opportunity to have a seat at the table of our family. And that's the last thing we want is to invite him into the space of our family. But we don't talk about it.
No.
And that's where my conviction has come. And I've discussed this even with John, like we should be passionate for families. If we fix the family, we really wouldn't even need leadership development outside the home because we would be teaching it at home.
Yes, for
and,
sure.
And we've said too, right? If you fix the family, you fix so much of the church, you fix the church, you build so much for the kingdom, right? Because the church is full of families. The family is the unit of everything. And I've seen some of the highest level executives lead the most phenomenally in their corporation. And their families falling apart. And you see it in the pulpit.
Yeah.
Men and women.
Men and women, yes.
Right? Because Sara coaches a couple of women executives that have just had some massive aha moments when she asked them the question, well, how would you have handled that situation at work? And they go, oh my gosh.
Oh.
Well, I'd never thought. Oh, that's my answer. Thank you. Click. Right? It's just like, and it's
always
just
so simple, hey?
Yeah.
But like,
right? Yeah.
it's not simple to do,
Right,
Yeah.
right,
But
right.
like the principles aren't like
No.
they're so
they're
applicable.
not. Yeah, it's not.
Yeah,
it's not earth shattering.
No,
Right?
Yeah.
It is. It's simple, but do we really want to live them out? And then we started. I think last night, or maybe it was even Friday night, which we had an awesome time over in Calgary.
Calgary,
It was
yeah.
unbelievable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Shout out.
Yes, matter of fact, I had to challenge last night the
Winnipeg
crew here
audience,
in Winnipeg. I was like, I'm just telling you, they set the bar, and they said you guys weren't going to be as good. But just thinking about the fact that, okay, why do we then get home? We get home and we just like, we're tired, we're done,
Yeah.
and we just shut everything off. When that's really where it should start. Like that should really be where the energy gets focused on our influence and our leadership for the children, and or even your marriage, or your sisters, or your brothers, your mom, dad, your grandparents. Doesn't matter, but it's not easy to do. Simple principles, but I think that the way our days are wired, we get to the end of the day and we're just so exhausted and tired, we just check out, and they get the least of us.
Of who we are.
Yep.
I
Versus
think
the
there's
most.
this misconception that the family unit should just be easy. We should always be loved for who we are. We should be given the benefit of the doubt. It should just be easy, right? That our kids should understand that we went to work all day long. We've come home, we're tired. Dad is the provider. Now respect dad as the provider. I need to sit and do my thing, right? And I think that you look at the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, that really was kind of what it was set up for, is, again, that thing of mom and dad are over here, kids are over here. But culture has shifted and churches have shifted, right? And so we have to shift with that.
Yeah.
The kids today are looking for more connection. The kids today are looking for relationship. The kids today are looking for someone who's standing behind them because they're inundated with so much influence of people who are shallow and not authentically for them. And so more than ever, we have to be as intentional as we can possibly be. The problem is we didn't grow up receiving love that way at home. So we are ground zero trying to figure out what this looks like. And I love hearing about your dad. If I could sit down and pick his brain for 30 minutes, because his generation didn't do that and do it really well for the most part, right? It was just very dad over here, mom over here, and kids over here. So I think as culture has evolved and the needs of our children have evolved, our parenting has to evolve with that. And with that comes being willing to say, hey, this isn't working anymore. I need to give the best to these people.
Yep.
Instead of giving the best all day here. I love this too. And John, we talk about this in the book that I wrote, and John talks about this, that the problem is the people that you work with, they already know your shortfalls. So you might as well just own them.
Yep.
And we put on so much of the best of us when we go to work that when we come home, we don't want to deal with those shortfalls. And yet it's the ones who are around us at home that will call us out on it and hold us accountable to it. And that ruffles
Including me
us.
not showing up for dinner.
That's right.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
ruffles us a little bit, right? And
Yeah.
so, and you can't, Chris and I had to talk about this because he would come home sometimes and I would feel like he was trying to manage me the way he was managing his team. And I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
hey, I'm not one of your team
Influencing,
members,
not managing.
right? Well, it felt
I'm just
managed.
kidding. Yeah.
Yeah.
Emotionally, it felt
Yeah,
that
yeah,
way.
yeah.
And so I'd be like, I'm not
Now's
one of
not
your
the time,
team
Chris.
people.
Yeah, that's
I'm,
right.
I'm
Yeah.
your spouse,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
so I think there's just learning how to have that different perception. of bringing home intentionality. And it doesn't have to be overwhelming. You just pick one thing at a time. Hey, I need to build on relational equity with each person in my home. What does that look like?
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to do this with Johnny and this with Jill. I'm going to do this with June, and I'm going to do this with Jimmy, right? And you just stick with those four things, and you just get intentional about it until it becomes a habit.
There's a justification process that is involved in there for some reason when you come home, even as a worker or as the man that works, even for in my household. There's a justification of once I get home, I'm like, yeah, I want to do all what I just did at work at home, but it's like, but I'm doing this over here, and I don't know. You just justify certain things that make you do less at home, not because you don't care, but you just feel like almost that I'm doing a lot when I'm not home for
That's
this
right.
home. And then it's like you're like you said before too, you're kind of the best salesman for yourself too.
Yeah.
So you get to a place where you're like, it's not that you don't even want to, it's just like, I don't know. Maybe there's a roles thing in there that makes you feel like I did my work today. I'm home now. I'm here to relax, even though that's not how parenting works.
Right.
And,
But I like what you said. You just said, I did this all day long for the home. Mm-hmm. I know I've had that. I know I 100% have had that thought, still have that thought periodically. And I guarantee you, it just hit me when you said that, because I think there's probably a lot of truth behind that. Like, I'm doing this learning, grinding, growing all day for the home, so that when I get home, I can just kind of relax. When I really should be working for the home first, and then the leftovers happen at work. I think that was a good statement that you just made, that I think I 100% would lean on as a justification.
Totally.
Of when I get home. I just
Well, that's how I
shut it
feel,
down.
and it's sometimes, anyways. And then so when you guys on Saturday night, you said, "I want you guys to do a favor when you get home. Count how many times you say no."
Yes.
And I literally whispered to Jess, I'm like, because Jess left for a nail appointment that day, and I was with Brooke for a few hours. And I said, Jess, I said no so many times while you were gone. Like, so many times. I'm like, Brooke, no, Brooke, no,
Yeah.
Brooke, no.
Yeah.
Because she just 14 months and gets into every drawer and does everything everywhere. And it's the cutest thing in the world.
Sure.
But it's like I also had things to do. And then you're balancing also wanting to get like some things done around the house for Jess so that when
Yeah,
she
so
comes
she comes
home, all of a
back.
sudden she doesn't have to do that anymore. And
Yep.
But then that's at the expense of Brooke, because I ended up locking Brooke in her room, and there's like a window on her door all the way down to the ground. And so I'm walking away, and she's crying, banging on the window. And I'm like, you have tons of toys behind you.
You're
Like,
fine.
you're fine. And then 3 seconds later, she's playing with herself
That's right.
in her room, and she's having fun with her blocks. But it's just funny how that all works. You have so many, like, I guess my goal becomes taking care of the home and family. And that's why it's Sunday, so my brain,
good,
my word
you're
count
good.
is gone for today. But the cards, what are they
Yes,
called?
the value
cards.
cards.
Thank you. The value cards, and that's why I mentioned to you guys over lunch, where I said in my top 10 was money and wealth, and it was hard to give that one away for top 5, even though it's not a value the way that you read it.
That's right.
But I also know that I strive to do that so I can provide for my family.
That's
So
right.
it's not like I need an infinite amount of wealth. It's just, but it does become.
It's on your mind.
So I wouldn't say it's a value, but it would be in my top 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you said.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
But then when you compare it, it's like, well, would I rather have a family or have money? Well, like, I'd live in a shack and have a family,
That's
and
right.
rather that
Right.
100 times over. But then there's that achiever side of us where you're like, well, then I feel like maybe I haven't achieved very much if that's what we're living in. And so there's just so many thoughts that go through the head. And then don't get me wrong with, or don't get me confused with, even when you're in Keeping Up with the Joneses
Yes,
and the
yes.
world consumerism mentality of everything you need when you don't really need a
So
lot.
much.
Yes.
Like, you really don't need a lot
No.
in order to thrive. Like, you don't. It's just, so it's interesting, but it's
I
a
think
work
it's a
in progress.
simplification. We so overcomplicate everything. We overcomplicate family, what it's supposed to look like. We overcomplicate what our day is supposed to look like. And when you think about the life of Jesus, he modeled the 5 levels for us, right? He had the position of a carpenter, the position of a son, the position of being a teacher, right? And then while he was doing those things, he also began to build relationships with people, and especially 12 of them.
Yeah.
And he poured into those 12. And he produced with them. He taught with them. They sat at his feet, but he also went with them, and he showed them how to do things and how to do them well. And then he said, "Hey, now go out and do it, and come back." And he had to go clean up some things that they did because they didn't do it right. Right? How many times do we have to do that with our kids? And then once his mission was met, it was time for him to go to heaven to be with his Father. He says, "Hey," he taught them how to pray. So now they know that they can come to him in prayer, and he left them with an advocate, right? And so in parenting, it's very, very similar. When you think about Jesus, he was always mission minded, but he never quit investing in the people. Right. And so as a parent, we can be mission minded. We have to go to work. Andy Stanley did a fantastic series one time called Choosing to Cheat. Old series, little coffee table book, incredible read for the two of us because we're both achievers. But basically is that everything that you do chooses to cheat. So it's like right now, you're sitting here with us doing a podcast, you're cheating your wife and your daughter by not being at home with them. That happens, right? Every day you have to go to work. You have to provide for your children. You're cheating being with them, but it's a necessary cheat and they need to see you do that because you have to provide, right? But when you think through the lens of, is what I'm doing right now the right cheat? Right? Is this what? So when you come home from work and you're just worn out and tired and you say no to something, you know you're cheating what you said no to. Was it the right no at the time? Was it the right cheat at the time? And what was your motivation behind it? In a book I read, Grace-Based Parenting, fantastic book. It taught me that about the no's. How many times are you saying no? Okay, we have to say no. But what are you saying no to, and what is your motivation behind it? If it's just because it's getting on your nerves, you don't want to take the time to teach something, you don't want to be inconvenienced, that's probably not the best motivation for a no. Right? And so when you begin to just have a small filter of, is this the best cheat for me in the moment? Am I keeping my main thing the main thing? Then you can begin to have a lens that you are filtering your decisions through. And there are going to be times Jesus had to go to the desert and he had to go and have his fast. He had to get away from the people. There are going to be times you have to do that. You cannot give all things all the time and make it.
You burn yourself out.
That's exactly
My
right.
dad used to say that, he said, don't ever say no unless you're willing to back it up kind of thing. Because a lot of people just say no and they throw it out and they throw it out and they throw it out. And it's like, no. And my sisters, my siblings always, they make fun of me because before we had kids, we had dogs. We still have dogs now. So our first dog was a Doberman. That was the one I told you guys that died in my yard. Like crazy story. So I was like, what the heck? And so I trained him. I made a lot of mistakes, but I trained him very well. He knew tons, like just craziest tricks and things. And it was always a good party trick with everyone. And he'd jump into my arms. He was an 80-pound dog. I'd say arms. He'd just jump straight into my arms. And it was just a lot of fun. But I always used to make fun of parenting to my sisters because I only had dogs. But I said the principles are the same. I said to my siblings.
Come on, yeah.
And they're like, yeah, but you can't just put your kid in a crate. And I'm like, I'm like, what's a crib? Like, tell me what a crib is. That's pretty much a crate. Just doesn't have a top on it. And there's some things out there now do put the top on it because it stops them from getting out. So I just kept going down this thing. They're like, well, yeah. I'm like, no, but it's just word association and making sure that you back up what you say. And so I started, and I still stand by that. Yes, it's different. I'm not saying kids are like dogs. I'm just saying the principles are very similar in the sense of the fact that when you're training a child, it's like you said, your yeses mean yes and your no's mean no. And if your no's don't mean no, well, they don't respect you.
That's right.
It's like I used to joke with one of my sisters, and I say it every once in a while. I won't say which sister, but I used to joke all the time. And she's like, "I'm going to count to 3," and she was with her kids. I'm like, "And what happens after 3?" Okay, like, well, we've seen it 100 times, and nothing happens after 3. Is what I said to her, and she looks at me, and she's mad at me, and I'm like, "What?" Like, I'm just saying, and it was just funny, but it's just like it's yes and no's, right? You got to make sure that from what and then Brooke's only just getting into that phase now where yes and no's, and you break her heart sometimes if you say no to her face, where she looks at you and she just blank stares and then she cries, and you're like, whatever, deal with it. Like, this is how life is. You don't get to do everything you want to do when you want to do it.
And
right?
I think the importance of being able to know your yes and your no's is what we talk about is just bringing home what is the family vision statement.
Yeah.
What is
I liked your guys'
what's the mission, and then what are our family rules, and then outside of that, like, you can really be free.
That's right.
And let your children
know your negotiables and know your non-negotiables.
But if you don't have that, what ends up happening is your no's become very fluid depending on where you are at emotionally that day as a parent, and it's our responsibility to close that gap of influencing and leading our children. And the best way for me and Sarah was to know, like, the purpose, our why statement, to know the vision, and then to know what we had as family rules. And then we were able to kind of let our yes be yes and our no be no. And it was our filter. And no matter if we were tired, it didn't matter. We knew that was our decision-making filter. I think that helps.
Just to add on to that is the no piece, right? When you say no all the time, then no just becomes a thing and not really a message to anybody. Right. And so one of the things I tried to do with the kids, and again, I learned so much of this in the Grace-Based Parenting book, was have a real reason so that when I say no, the kids trust me. They know there's a reason, because mom doesn't just say no.
Right.
You, even at a small age. Now, don't get me wrong. Mom can have a cookie. No, I didn't say yes all the time. But if I said no, I often tried to tell the kids why. Hey, it's almost dinner time, so we're not going to spoil our meal. You know, Mom, can I go outside? No, not right now. We're getting ready to do this. So I always tried to tie it to a reason, so they knew I wasn't just saying no for the sake of no and exercising my right as a parent, even though there is an appropriate time for that. But here's a story for you that I think is worth telling. Addie, it was her senior year, and it had been COVID. And she had a group of friends in her high school that probably were not the top 5 that we would choose for them. Not a lot of faith-based kids, but they were great kids. We loved them. We wanted them in our house. But we watched things carefully. We were very well aware of where our kids were. One of ours was much more sneaky than the other and deceptive, and I won't say which one. So we tracked that child when we needed to, and we caught that child not telling the truth sometimes when we needed to. And I was telling somebody last night, hey, it's not your kids you don't trust, it's the devil you don't trust, right? And so we just wanted to make sure that we were making it as hard as possible for our kids to do things that could break their hearts, break our hearts, or every good kid is one bad decision away from changing the course of their lives. We tried to make that as hard as possible for our kids. So she comes to me and says, hey, Mom, the group of friends and I want to go up to Blue Ridge, which is a little up in the Blue Ridge Mountains. And a friend of theirs had a family cabin there, and all the kids were going to go up. And these were 17 and 18-year-olds. And I, knowing her also being introverted and not loving to be stuck in places, she likes to be in her own bed at night, all the things. And knowing that there were probably some things that were going to go on that I didn't want her to be there without adult supervision, I just was like, yeah, that's not going to be okay. We're going to do a no on that. And she was just, what do you mean no? I'm going to college next year. And not all of those statements were true. But I knew what our family values were, and I knew that this opportunity was probably not going to set her up for success personally and her personality, but also where we stand as a family.
Right.
And so I was like, no. Now here's what I did. I said, if you want to get up in the morning and drive up for the day and drive back home tomorrow evening, that's fine, but you're not staying the night. And she pushed and she pushed, and I finally looked at her. I said, Addie, how many times do I say no? She's like, well, not very often. And when I say no, do I usually have a good reason why? Yes. And do I ask you just to trust me when you don't understand or you're not in agreement? Yes. So I'm just going to ask you to trust me. And 2 days later, she comes to me, Mom, I'm so glad you didn't let me go. Like, that was so the right decision, right? But because I only used the no's when I really needed to use the no's, she knew it was important to me. She knew I knew something. She knew I was pulling the mom card. She knew I've got more wisdom than you do card, right? And she trusted me in that moment. And it ended up being the right thing, and we ended up being fine about it, right? So that's just a story behind when you don't have no's all the time to where they don't hold any weight. They're just more an aggravation and a power hold than anything. You lose that opportunity to use your no's and yeses to build relational equity with your kids so that when you really need to say no about something because there's something not good going on and you're protecting them, they won't know that because you haven't built them up for that success. So that would be a story I'd share on that.
Complete sense. Yeah. And it's a very good way of doing it because I think that no is probably, it must be the most overused word in parenting.
Yeah.
It's got to be. Like, there's just like, there must be no comparison.
Think about if you had your team at work who are always trying to be creative, who are trying to grow in their area of development, their ministry, and they came to you and asked questions regularly, which they probably do, or your chief of staff, whomever, and 75% of the time you said no. They would feel like their dreams don't matter. They don't have a say. You don't get believed in. They don't have any creative liberty because the answer is always no.
Lack of engagement.
There's that lack of engagement, right? Kids are no differently. When all you do is say no all the time, you're just putting that lid on them. You're just stuffing them down all the time because of your inconvenience of wanting to understand what's really going on. Why do they want to do that? Find out, is it a value of theirs? Because you might be saying a no to something that is a value of them. So now not only are you just saying no, but you're stifling that value in them. They don't feel like they are being seen and connected with in that moment.
I like the values card a lot.
It's great,
That was a
isn't it?
great exercise, and I think that probably helped a lot of the families and parents too,
Mm-hmm.
a lot, because it's the small things that you don't realize that it made me even realize in my marriage. I'm like, well, we've been married for 8, coming on 9 years in July, I think it is, and 9. It's always we just passed 8, so it's always interesting though. It's like I think I know her values,
Right.
but it's like, but then when you put them in the perspective on Saturday night, where I was like, well, maybe I don't know her specific values, like not to that degree. Like I do, like I can tell you what she likes, what she doesn't like, what she thrives on, what she doesn't thrive on, how she is, what. But then if I really were to boil it down, I don't know if I'd ever go like, yeah, fun is one of her values. Yep, integrity is one of her values. Well, it's like a lot of those values, some people might say this is my value or this is something I really value. But when you boil it down to 5, now you're really in the nitty gritty of what of the deepest meaning parts of this person's life, most likely. Like this is what this makes it go, like this is what you need to focus on. And even that, I mean, that right there, the value system would be such a good marriage thing.
And the description behind it, right? Like that's the key is getting their why behind why they value that value. Mm-hmm. We have this statement that we use in corporate America where we use the word value a lot in a sentence. So bear with me. We say all the time that when the team member or the employee, or now we'll talk about our spouse or our children, when they know that the organization values what they value being a part of that organization at a completely different level.
Oh, I believe it.
Right? Same thing with our marriage, like you're just talking about. So going through yours and going through Jess, and same thing with Sarah and I, and understanding the why behind that, they're going to tell you stories that is going to be from their perspective that we can't make an assumption about, because we'll miss truly how to influence them with the right motive to be able to lead them in that value.
Oh, yeah.
So just as important, maybe more than the value, is once you have conversations like this, is knowing the why behind that value. Just kept making the cut.
Why
right?
does it
Like
matter?
even how you struggled with the money and wealth. Like there's a reason why you struggled with it, and you went back and forth. And so all of us have that.
Well, you fight
With the why.
fight comparison, or you
Yes.
fight
Yes.
what's the word? You fight I fought public image in that moment,
Sure.
where I was just like, well, I'm not like the way people would think
That's right.
that would entail. That I don't mean that in a way that I'm a consumer and I always need more. And so it's like, it's interesting that way too, how much you think through what people think of you in that.
Yep.
Well, I wonder if people saw my 5 values, like what would they think of me? Like if I did put money and wealth in there, if I put recognition or status, it's like, what would people think of me? It's like, well, but then again, you can't judge someone's intentions. I mean, the Bible talks about that too.
That's right.
So it's like, well, what are your intentions? Well, the closest we can get to intentions are actions, because actions, they speak a lot louder than words, right? And so it's just interesting in that sense, because the values almost seem bigger than love languages almost to me.
They could be, right?
Yeah.
So you just triggered a thought when you said recognition. So on my team at Maxwell Leadership, I have a gentleman that is been with me a long time. One of his top 5 values is recognition. Mm-hmm. And just like you just said, well, the perception of that publicly is like, I mean, does this guy need to be lifted up all the time? But what I found is that his love language, or we call him in the corporate world, we call him appreciation language, it's the same as love languages, is that he needs words of affirmation. Mm-hmm. So this individual would prefer me send out a company note or in a company meeting recognize him for some good work versus giving him a paycheck, an extra, bonus paycheck or whatever. But that's what he values.
But that's so good to know
as
in the
right,
corporate.
but
Yes.
right, even in that. And so it's like, once I understood why recognition was so important to him, then I could lead him how he needed to be led. I could lead him more effectively to draw out the best of him in what he's doing. And so it is understanding that, because I'm the same as you, right? It's like, okay, do I want anybody to see that I'm putting this card down, but they don't really know the why behind it? Mm-hmm. And that's where we say all the time, it's just a fleshly thing. We judge ourselves by our intent. We judge everybody else by their actions, without even trying to understand their intent.
100%.
And so with that being said, you got to understand the intent behind, why did money and wealth even make it in your top 10? They're going to be like, what is a pastor doing with money and wealth? And
Yeah.
whatever. That's That's where curiosity comes in, which we talked a little bit about last night, and beginning to really try to understand their perspective, because your intent is not that. But my perception sitting here could be, right? But I got to make sure I try to help close that gap to make sure I truly understand. So, yeah, it works. Marriages, it works with children,
amazing.
it works in the corporate environment.
It's that we make assumptions all the time of people based on our own past hurt.
100%.
That's what it comes back down to
You're
a lot
biased.
of the time. Yeah, 100%. You try to back up everything in someone else. A lot of the time, it's like, well, I've had that experience in my life, or it's churches and pastors and stuff. They get painted with the same brush as every other pastor in church, right? We don't do that with anything else. It's like, oh, you can have a bad steak at a restaurant. You don't skip out on all steak places after that, right? It's just like you just go find another one, and there's usually a good one that's great. And we like to hammer that a lot, because I'm like, just because you were hurt in one, it's like just because. Well, and you see this in the world too. It's like a bit like some girl was hurt by one guy or one bad divorce, and it's like, I'm done with all men. And it's like, oh, it's so unfortunate, because if you met the right man with the right values, led by the right person, Jesus, man, would he just blow your doors off. Like you'd be like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. And it's unfortunate when we can, the kind of that copy paste thing, right? We've experienced it, and then we kind of just we do ourselves a disservice by copy and pasting it on every new relationship that you get into.
Totally agree.
And you're just like, oh my goodness. But when you're in the corporate or wherever it might be with the values, how do you get the explanation from so many different people in that organization?
Yeah, this is a great question.
And we don't know. That's kidding.
No, what's important is, and we were talking a little bit about this earlier, about the organizational structure. I'm of a belief that really you shouldn't lead more than probably 6, 7 direct reports.
Right.
So it's the responsibility to cascade it throughout the organization.
Okay. That makes sense. Yep.
So let's say you have 3 or 4 direct reports. You need to know your 3 or 4, and then you need to hold your 3 or 4 accountable to knowing their 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And it's got to cascade all the way down. I will tell you this, depending on the size of your organization, we did something fun at Maxwell Leadership one time when we were rolling this out. I rolled it out to the company-wide, and we were going through it. And so every week when we had a company meeting, we would have somebody read a story about the other person in the company, no one knew who it was, their top 5 values. And what we did was we paired people up cross-functionally. So I would put somebody from our accounting team with somebody with our sales team.
Yeah.
That's always a fun conversation, right?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
the salesperson's talking over the account, and they're like, or an IT guy, or whatever it is. And so then we would come into the company meeting, and they would read this anonymous person, this letter that they wrote. They had to ask questions. Let's say it was you and I got paired up. And so I would say, okay, tell me your top 5 values. Tell me why. Tell me a story. I'd be taking notes. So then I'd come to the meeting, and I would say, all right, this individual, first value is this, and here's why. And I would just tell a couple stories. And the second one is, and everybody's leaning in because we gave gift cards away to anybody who could guess who it was. And so it was just a way to connect, right? Now, listen, 150 people, we couldn't get through everybody. It's a small company, but even that, we couldn't get through everybody. But understanding, back to your question, that you have to know those that report directly to you. It's a must-have. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of scale down. We have some HR departments, when we go through this, they actually want everybody to send theirs into with a description of the HR, and then they build a file for everybody. And then if they're working with Sarah, they go and look at Sarah, and they're like, all right, so they have the awareness of it. So there's a couple different ways to do it, but the most important thing to do it is to do it with the ones that
direct reports. Yeah. Well, that's genius to know that. I mean, we do that with a lot of personality types and different things as well.
Yeah.
It's smart to get that, because if you guess at how to value a lot of people a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And your guess doesn't. And I mean, I've been in meetings where it's like I felt like the meeting went great, and I felt like everything was good, and then I'm like,
It wasn't.
and it wasn't, and I'm like, what? Like that felt so good. We were happy, we were loving, we hugged at the end,
Until you
everything was
weren't.
good, and then it's like, oh, like what in the where did I miss this,
Yeah.
right? But a value of that person's might be something different, like I don't know, like trust or integrity, and maybe my helping of someone might feel like, oh, do you trust me, or do you do this, or do you do that, and you're just like, okay, well, I didn't realize that.
Or efficiency.
Yeah.
Maybe the meeting was too long.
Yeah.
Like I drive
Or at
people-
the wrong time.
Yeah, like crazy. If on some of my team, if we're not efficient,
Because I'm high efficiency.
right? So
Yeah.
it's like, and they're like, that meeting was way too long. I'm like, what do you mean?
But let me tell you what it looks like in the church world. And this is where the takeaway is so important, because remember, we're trying to develop teams. and we're trying to develop teams, influence teams, and develop, not train. Remember, we're trying to develop the people, develop the organization, because you want your church to build legacy in its community, right? So for you, it's you do this with your 6 people. Then those 6 people do it with their 6 people. Those 6 people do it with their 6 people. And what I try to tell my ministry leaders is, hey, you need to get to know your volunteers. Get your volunteer leads to get to know their volunteers, and those volunteers to get to know each other. Teams can stay as small as we want them to stay, right? And then if you do community groups, your community group leaders get to know the people in their community groups, so that hopefully there's always the people who are not engaging. There's always those people who don't get to know anybody else, right? And they never felt like they could connect.
Totally.
That exists.
Yep.
But hopefully the idea is that even down to just the people who are attending and not serving are sitting in a small group, dropping their kids off at nurseries. They're known by somebody. You can grab them and get to know them so that everybody feels valued, seen, and heard, no matter what level they are within the church. That's where the common language is so important, right? Because when you have the common language and you adopt something as an organization, you roll it out to everybody. Now that person who left because of something that happened at the church, did they have anybody who they could go to and talk to about what their values were and why they got upset at the church? And you want to try to take as many opportunities off the table. It's still going to happen.
Yeah.
But you don't want to just say, oh, it's going to happen. You want to minimize those opportunities so that somebody who's coming in and starts volunteering, automatically their volunteer lead knows what's important to them and what their value is. And they're going to lead their volunteers the way they need to be led. And then your staff member who leads the volunteer leads, leading them the way they need to be led. So like Chris says, when the people feel valued, they want to stay in that organization. They will be all in.
Yep.
Because the organization is just as much for them as you are for the organization. It's the same thing with families. It's the same thing with marriage. When I know that Chris is as much for me as I want to be for me, man, that is, why would I want to get out of this relationship? Right? And vice versa.
It's good.
I think that's the value aspect of that all. It's mind-boggling how much it allows you to show someone, like, it sounds super dumb when I say it out loud, but it sounded good in my head. How it allows you to value them. Like,
Yes.
you just don't realize.
Yes.
It's just like, what I never knew. Like I said, one of Jess's top 5s was fun, and I would have never guessed that. Yeah. Not because she's not fun, but because we're in mother and fatherhood now, and we're in a different season of life with just like business. What I mean, ministry and pastoring, and I was like, what? Like, that's it seems like you'd rather do a lot of the stuff around the house and things with our life and organization before you'd want to have fun. If fun was your value, I thought you'd be like me, where it's like fly off the seat of our pants and let's just go have some fun, man. You know what I mean? Like, let's leave the house behind. Let's go have some fun. You know?
It's organized fun.
Yes, exactly. And that's what you start to learn, is that you're like, wow, I didn't like, and you can know someone so well, but then realize how little you know about them when the values start coming up. Yeah. And I thought that was great.
It's important to remember, though, we don't just want to get stuck in value. Right? The value is a tool that we're using to build the relational equity because we want to produce. So you don't want to get stuck where all you're doing is constantly learning about people and showing them that you value them. That's important. But it's so that you can begin to produce as a team. So whether that is a church or an organization corporately, or it's a family unit, or just a marriage. You may not have kids yet. You begin to produce. And what does that production mean? Right. Well, you know this. You have a little girl now, right? So you have to teach her how to be part of the team. How does she fit in? What are some of her responsibilities? How is she going to be a contributor to your team?
Yeah.
Right. And same thing with your volunteers or with your volunteer leads. You're showing them that you value them, so that as you're showing them how you want them to lead the volunteers, so that you can grow their capacity and grow that and reproduce what's going on in there, produce and reproduce, you've got their buy-in. Yeah. And so we talk sometimes in the world of parenting, what happens sometimes, people just get stuck at 2 because they want likability. Yeah.
Right.
They want people to like them. They want people to feel good. We want people to feel good about themselves. We don't want to make it. I have a guy on my team who, man, he loves people and he knows people. He's so sensitive to them. But I have to encourage him also to require production out of them. right? And I have to work at getting production out of him sometimes because he can get caught up in the service part of it all.
Yep.
So we got to make sure, because we spend so much time, and we really do, because you can't skip the levels. Right? Positional is pretty easy to understand and grasp. Relational permission is where we really are trying to get the buy-in so that we can get into and connect, so we can get into that level 3 and get into that level 4. So whether it's an institution or a family unit, you're growing together.
Likability is a big one too, because I mean, one of my deepest fears, according to the DISC system personality test, which would be the rejection of people. Mm-hmm. And my job in that typically doesn't mesh very well, right? But and you learn. I mean, I learned the hard way and the good way from my dad about what to do and how to do with that and deal with it. But I have that likability aspect to me where I'm just like, but I want to be liked, but I want to be liked, but I want to be liked, and I had to try to die to that, because I was just like, I got to stop trying to be liked all the time. Like why do I care about someone liking me that doesn't talk to me ever, doesn't think about me ever, doesn't text me ever, and I think, what? And it's like, you can get a comment in the halls and you're like, oh wow, that sucks. Like, and I've died to that since then, but it's just funny how sometimes that can happen where your job doesn't mesh well with a people rejection thing, because you're like, oh my goodness, like, it's all people. And if you deal with a lot of people,
you deal with rejection.
You have to. It's just in there.
Well, it's like, I think we talked about the other night, man, leadership would be easy if it weren't for the people.
I know. Exactly.
Including ourselves, right? Because the hardest person
and you couldn't lead without people. So it's like...
Yeah. I want to go back to what Sarah said just a minute ago about understanding the 5 levels of influence, even for those that are watching or listening. At level 1 is really about positional influence. It's because you have a title. Level 2 is connecting with them, building relationships. People want to follow you. Level 3 is producing, whatever that looks like for you. It could be driving revenue. It could be saving costs. It could be accomplishing tasks. And then level 4 is where we begin to mentor and develop people. We reproduce ourselves in them. And then level 5 is kind of the pinnacle level. And that is, you've just done levels 2, 3, and 4 so well for so long that people look at you with the ultimate respect. And what Sarah's saying is, we believe, and John would say the same thing, the foundation to all of that is level 2. We've got to get that right. But we are either naturally wired towards level 2 as just a natural God-given ability, or we're naturally wired towards level 3 and your production. So we've got to have learned behaviors on both sides, because you have to move through the levels of influence. I say all the time, listen, if we all do level 2 really well and we get stuck, none of us are going to have a job. Because we are not producing, we're not getting a paycheck, we're not getting things done. We can't just sit here and sing Kumbaya together. But if you go straight to level 3, or you stay at level 3, you are going to run over people, and you won't have the people with you on the journey. Right. And so you have to do both. And what I see a lot in corporate America is I see people go from 1 to 3, because why? We get a job, we get a responsibility, we want to make sure that they made a good decision, and we're a valued employee, and we're producing, and so we're just going to start going right away. And what ends up happening is you skip the foundation of connecting with your team and your people, and then the people begin to leave on your team because they're not led well. You're killing them. They're running over them. And all of a sudden you got really good people going out the back door. It's similar, I would say, even in our church and in the world, is where you were talking about the Pareto principle earlier. I mean, listen, when it comes to volunteers and people helping, 80% of the work gets done by 20% of the people. And so that's what ends up happening. And so if that is true, then we got to make sure we know how to connect and what the values are of those that are helping us run the infrastructure of the church. Because ultimately, if we don't, we're going to wear them out, we're going to burn them out, and they're going to be out the back door because we didn't take the initial step to understand really, truly who they are, how they're wired or whatever. So, yeah.
Because, last night we talked about how accountability and responsibility are in that level 3. A lot of people who have a natural bent for 2 have a hard time with the accountability responsibility piece. It feels mean. It feels assertive. It feels aggressive. It feels directive. It feels uncomfortable.
You're not going to be liked by people.
Your kids might say hateful things. I hate you, or you're a horrible mom, or whatever, right? They're explosive. They're expressive. Your people may pass you in the hallway and tell you how they feel about you, right? Accountability, responsibility are uncomfortable things, but they're a natural progression of life. Right. And so if all you do is stay in that likability, I said a phrase last night, we don't want to focus on being liked by our kids.
No.
We want to be focusing on being respected by our kids. Right. And so even God loves us enough to have accountability and responsibility for the things we're doing here on earth. And he's modeled that for us. And we've got to do the same thing with our children. We've got to do the same thing with our teams. We were talking to a guy after the Calgary workshop, and he was talking about how he has a really hard time holding some employees accountable for something. And he and Chris kind of talked through that, and this is his sweet spot, and they were in a fantastic conversation about it. And you got to know your awareness. You got to know where your strength and your weakness are, but you can't stay in that. You've got to have, where your growth gaps are, and where you need to grow. For me, it was relationally. I had a very production level 3 outcome of parenting or outlook of parenting. I just really thought, hey, you're going to do what I say. And once I know who's in charge, then I might make some relationship with you. But I had one kid specifically who was not going to do that until he knew I cared about him. When I started showing him I cared about him and I started valuing him, I started getting results out of him, whether it was not crying or having a good attitude or picking up his toys or whatever. And it's these littlest things, right? But once he knew his needs were going to be met and I cared about and valued him, like, it was amazing when I could give him positive affirmation. I mean, it was amazing what I could get out of this kid, right? And I began to realize, he has got to have people connection. I have got to pour into him relationally. Whereas if you're a relationally minded person, you may be like, well, I can't punish him. That makes me feel bad. It's that perspective of knowing. And here's the thing. If you know this is where you want to go, which is level 5, you've got to be willing to do the work. We said the first person you have to grow is yourself. The first person you have to lead is you. That's why a lot of people don't do it. Because they're not willing to go through what it takes to change to become what your kid needs.
The principle or the thought behind that is to lead where you're strong, where God created you. Lead where you're strong, and then put people or a system around you where you're weak. Now, I use the word weak, but it's just a growth area. So what does that mean? That means if you're heavy, production minded, well, then you need to put a system in place, whether it's in your calendar or something that says, get up and go walk around with the people. Or, hey, listen, Zach's values are this. Fun. See if he wants to go hit golf balls at lunch. Whatever it is. But you have to understand how you're developed, how you're, how God created you, wired. 100%. We're all perfectly, wonderfully made. And so I've really just lived behind that of saying, okay, so I know I'm naturally gifted here. That's great. Suck at this, right? And so I need to put either people that are going to help me or a system that's going to help me do that in my calendar, in my whatever. And so as you're listening to this and you're thinking about it, whether it's at work, home, in your marriage, you're not going to be naturally gifted at both. You're one or the other. Figure out how to have some learned behaviors in the other side to be able to increase your influence.
To balance that out. That's right.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible, I think. Well, and that's why, I don't know, you see a lot of people that just don't, like, it, I don't know if I can say it like this, but it's, most of these things, parenting included, if you were to just invest time in it, you'd realize not only how rewarding it is, but it's not super complicated. Like, I don't mean that as in like, it's easy, I got to figure it out. But marriage is the same thing. It's kind of one of those things. Once you die to the feeling that you don't want to be inconvenienced, and you're just like, be inconvenienced. That's how you build a good marriage. That's how you build a good you raise and develop, like you said yesterday, good kids. It's it's okay to be inconvenienced, and in fact, if you're going to have to be in order to build a great anything now. And we do that at work all the time. It's not hard at all. I've had conversations with many people, different people, where it's like, well, I don't know where I'm going to fit in reading, and I'm like, well, you better fit it in somewhere, because at some point you're going to, like, anywhere that you go, you've now invested in yourself. You've brought all that information with you. You're developing where you will be. My dad used to always say, wherever you go, there you are.
I love that.
That's good.
It's as simple as, it's just like, well, yeah, that's it. There you are. And guess what? Everything's with you. So it's like, you can choose what you want to do with your life. And if you don't make that discipline, then it gets very difficult.
Intentionally invest. I love that, right? Be intentional about whatever that is.
Yep.
Right. Be intentional about it and invest the time in doing it.
I
Makes
used to be a
difference.
little catty with the kids sometimes. Addie didn't like to pray out loud in front of people.
I used to like
That's
that.
kind of that introverted piece. And we'd make her sometimes, and we'd be at dinner and she'd be like, oh, I don't want to do it, Mom. And I'm like, well, I bet Jesus really didn't want to die on the cross either. But he did.
Mom went like hardcore,
Right?
like
Straight to the
conviction-
cross,
yeah,
baby.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah. And Addie's like,
She's like, that's not fair. And I'm like, why? Why isn't it fair?
Yeah.
Right. And so I know it can sound harsh, but we sit in a culture of people who want to excuse why they don't want to grow,
Yeah.
but they want the product of growth without doing the growing.
100%.
Right.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and I get real that way when I think about the family. If you're a believer, this is a spiritual experience. This is a kingdom building thing. So it absolutely counts to say, hey, I get it, it's hard. I get it, it's inconvenient. I get it, it's difficult and it's not comfortable. Then I had to have the conversation with myself when I hit that plateau with Addie that we talked about last night. Hey, God died on the cross for me. If he can die, Jesus, if he can die for me, if God can give his son to death, to hell for 3 days for me, I think I can read a book. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm going to stand in front of him someday. And I know this could sound harsh, but it is the reality. We are all going to stand in front of Christ someday. And we're going to give an accountability for the family that he gave to us and how we stewarded that family.
Yep.
There's no perfect answer for what that is. What you're stewarded to and what I'm stewarded to may look differently. But we have to be obedient to what we feel. And if you've got that thing inside of you that says, hey, I should probably be growing in this area, then that's probably a little stirring of the Holy Spirit inside of you saying, hey, it's time. And I knew when Addie and I were in that impasse and I came to him, the Lord is calling me to change and grow, to become the mom she needs me to be. I have a decision to make. I can do it or I cannot do it.
Yep.
And then I have to serve. I don't serve a mean God because if I had chosen not to do it and I now am going to experience the consequences of that decision, that's not God's fault. That's my fault. If I choose to become different and hopefully have because you know what the outcome's going to be, if the consequences of choosing to change and grow, same thing, right? Like if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But God has called me to growth. God has called me to do what he's called me to do. And that's to be what I need to be for the kids he's given to me, not for them to be who they need to be to make my life easier.
Right.
And so I do think we have to have the lens of accountability for ourselves sometimes. It says, hey, I serve a God who sent his son to die on the cross for my sins and offer me an eternity of salvation. And he has asked of me to turn these kids into kingdom builders, to carry out the gospel story, the Great Commission. I owe it to him and the salvation of eternity that I have to give that the best that I can.
Yeah, I agree. The time has gone by very quick, and I want to respect your guys' time too. But I have one more question.
oh, yeah.
And the question would be, it could be a difficult one, but what you see, I feel like in culture today is there's so many options that it's hard to make it's hard to choose one. It's hard to choose like, okay, let's start to invest in ourselves. Where does that start? Well, I want to learn leadership. Okay, well, what book? Like, my goodness. And it's like, oh, I want to get better at parenting, but it's like everyone. I tell our church all the time, I'm like, when you first get pregnant and you're having your first kid, it's almost better to not listen to anyone in the halls because you have so many people. It's like this person says do this, and the next person that talks to you, and it happened to me too, says the opposite of it.
That's right.
And there is an aspect where it's like read the books. My daddy used to always say, take the meat, spit out the bones. If one book gives you one line that changes your life, then it was worth it.
Right.
And so it's like figure that out and go do it. But a lot of the time now is that people don't know where to go, what to do. So and this is a question for both of you. So on one side for parenting, if people are listening right now going, where can I get better with parenting? What's a good resource for that? Where would you start with that when someone's just like, I don't even know where to start. There's so much on parenting now. You look up on Amazon, and you're like parenting books, and it's like
there's a ton.
Yeah,
there's a ton, and unfortunately, I feel like we don't have a lot of great resources out there that are just geared for parenting and family. Focus on the Family is a fantastic one. They have a lot of great resources, a lot of great books that they would recommend, podcasts that you can watch, topical things that you can be a part of. That'd be a start. Also, we talk about The Village. Sometimes the best books that I've learned about are people that I'm doing life with. And I'm just like, hey, what's a good parenting book that you've read lately?
Right.
And I'll read the back of it. This is where I miss having bookstores to go in and actually sit in front of them and hold the books and read the back and flip through them, decide if I think this, look at the topics, is this what I want to read? And but I was that person. I didn't have anybody who could give me any great advice. So I don't think that's changed generationally. And one of the things I did is I really just started researching books. And I was like, okay, this is where I want to grow. Let me go find a book that has to do with this.
Yeah.
So I would literally go in those days to the bookstore and look. But now I literally will do a Google search of, hey, for growing boys, I needed a good book for boys. And That's My Son by Rick Johnson was one of the most profound books I ever read because I had sisters and he was very different. I didn't know how he was doing life, right? I didn't understand this little kid in front of me.
And that look is what we got a lot around the house because she wasn't around boys growing up. And some of the things that Rylan and I did.
I mean, I had to learn how to change a diaper for a boy, right? I'd never done that before.
But she did say, boys, you are going to put the toilet seat down. I'm going to tell you that right now.
They do.
That is number one rule in mom's house because all the girls
do not dumb down your boys. They are more than capable of wiping their pee off of the toilet and putting the toilet seat down.
Oh, it's too funny.
And so anyways, that's where I started. And I asked a lot of questions around people, hey, again, have you read any great books? Do you know what do you know that I need to know?
Yeah.
A mentor, a coach. Coaching is so much more becoming a thing also.
Yeah.
And use your church as a resource, right? I do think it's an area that we should grow in as a church is how to resource our families and how to resource our parents and have books that we recommend on a lot of different titles. It's one of the things I'm working on my coaching site is I'd like to have a resource page where the books that I found to be profound, podcasts that I find to be enlightening, I'll put those on there. But the fact is just make an effort. You might not find the book immediately that has that aha moment for you. And I did exactly what your dad said. I read books and I took from them what I wanted and I left what I didn't. And I tell my pregnant young moms, don't listen to anybody's advice. Just figure out what's going to work for you.
Yes,
because your pregnancy and your delivery are going to be different than everybody else's. It's fun to talk about things, but there is no one size fits all. And so it's the same thing with parenting. Find the books that resonate with you. I talked about a couple, Grace-Based Parenting, That's My Son. Paul David Tripp has a Parenting 14 Principles that is, I wish I had had when I was an early parent, one of the best books I've ever written or ever read. I mean, they're just so how to have a new kid by Monday and like just Creative Parenting by Lisa Welchel was a fantastic book for me. Blair from The Facts of Life wrote it. And I had a kid who I had to constantly change things with Ryland because he would figure them out and then manipulate them. And so I constantly had to be changing things. And so Creative Correction from Lisa Welchel was a fantastic one. But I literally would just dive into, hey, this is what I'm looking for help for. And I would search it on the internet, go to a bookstore, whatever. We don't have those anymore. At least y'all might hear. We don't have them in America anymore. And not like that. And I just find one. And some of them are duds. Some of them didn't do anything for me. And I didn't do a whole lot with them. But then like there was one book, Shepherding a Child's Heart. It's a great written book. It's written from I don't think it's written by Paul David Tripp, but maybe his brother or whatnot, but maybe it is him. I didn't love it, but there were two big principles that I took away from it, and they helped model some of the things that we were doing. One of them was what you do after you've had to have some correction with your kid, and how you pray with them and you love with them and you explain what's going on, and that punishment isn't transactional, it's transformational. And I read that book 24 years ago, and here I am still talking about it, right?
Yeah, it's
so
crazy.
You just find those pieces that make sense to you and that you can say, hey, I can do that. That's it. We're not asking you to change the way you parent. We're just asking you to add to what you're doing to be intentional about it. And then have some rules for your family, have a mission for your family, and stick to it.
Yep. I love the mission thing. That's great. I think everyone needs to take that and figure out what the mission is. Remind us what yours was. Obey, be kind, and...
So those were our 3 rules. My mission statement, and this kind of came to me even without he and I talking about it, but I wanted fully devoted servants of the Lord Jesus Christ.
Okay.
That is something that I prayed over them when I would put them to bed every night. I'd pray and I'd be, Lord, just help them to be fully devoted servants of the Lord Jesus Christ. So that gave me a lens for why I would say yes or I would say no to things, or why I parented a certain way, because I knew what I was trying to produce,
Yeah.
right? They get older, you have to have something that makes sense.
Yep.
How do you
And simple.
do that?
It's got to be
right?
clear and simple.
So for us, it was obey, be kind, and tell the truth. It was very important. I didn't do the don'ts. Don't be disobedient. Don't lie. Don't be mean. Right? And I don't want to focus on the don'ts. I want to focus on the being of the child. I want them to be kind. I want them to be obedient. I want them to tell the truth. Those are traits, right? Not just actions. And so that's what we focused on. We had a Bible verse for each one of them. And when the kids would break one of those, then we would say, hey, which family rule did you break? And
As they were younger, we would tell them.
Yeah.
And then as they got older, we would begin to ask them,
Right.
right? Because you want to begin to develop that in them.
we want them to be able to produce that on their own.
Yeah.
Right.
And so funny thing is all of our siblings adopted the same 3 rules. So all of our nieces and nephews were raised on the same 3 rules. And to this day, both of the kids still know what the Goede family rules were. And I hope someday maybe they will use those for their children.
Yep.
Because again, it's simple, a simple framework. But it really gave us, if they weren't being mean, which the funny thing is, if you think about it, almost everything falls under those 3 rules. But if what they were doing didn't really follow under any one of those 3 rules, then it was a negotiable for us. And it didn't have to be a hardcore anything.
Yeah.
It might be a conversation, not a big deal. But if it was within those 3, we expected immediate obedience. We didn't count to 3. In the Shepherding a Child's Heart, he says, and it's so true, when you count to 3, you're giving them an opportunity to disobey twice before they obey the 3rd time.
Yeah.
And that's not biblical. It doesn't say, hey, children, obey your parents on the 3rd time.
And Sarah used to always say, she'd be like, if my child's about to run out in the parking lot, I don't need them to wait
don't
till
have
3
3 counts.
Yeah.
get them to stop, right? Like and again, we're sounding very directive, kind of extreme. This
No,
is
it's
just some
good.
things going, back and forth. But,
Yeah, of course.
But what's so funny, you were thinking, you just said this about now all of our niece and nephews, and that our children were the oldest. And so when you were just talking a little bit earlier about how you were like, hey, sisters, listen, I mean, look at my dog. Like, this is right. Okay. So I'm just going to jump in the boat real quick with your sisters, because we were the first ones to have children in our family. And man, my sister and her husband and my brother and his wife, they would just be like,
My
they're
sister.
so structured and this and that. Or I can't believe you're allowing the kids to do this or that. Like,
Or
I
you
mean,
talk
just
to your
judged,
kids like
right?
they're adults already.
Yeah. Like, and then they all had children. And they were like, okay, so now tell us
What are the
again,
3
like,
rules?
what are those
Yeah.
rules?
Yeah.
And now our kids are out of the house, and all their kids are in elementary, middle, and high school, and we're just like,
Yeah.
It's so fun.
we're like, come here, niece and nephews. I got a few things I want you to try, and let's see, put a little pressure on your mom and dad.
Yeah.
So
love that.
it's
And make no mistake, man, we could sit here and tell you the number of things that we did that were so wrong and mortifying and embarrassing and broke our hearts.
Yeah.
We're just trying to give nuggets of hope to people to say, hey, you're going to be okay. Just be
yeah.
intentional about it.
Yeah.
Have a purpose, have a reason, have a way that you're moving so that you're giving your family what it deserves and not just everyone else outside the home that doesn't even really deserve the best of you, right?
Yeah.
Because again, our first calling is our first mission field, and our first mission field is our home.
Yep. I agree.
And so we just need to love on that and
Yep.
nurture that, and then we go out into the rest of the world, right?
Yeah.
We told everybody in Calgary, and then obviously here in Winnipeg last night, we're just survivors.
We are.
Yeah, I remember. I love that opening.
Yeah.
Right?
that
Like,
was great.
I mean, hey, like it reminds me too of, being with John so long, and now he's like, if you're surprised at what I'm saying, you'd be really surprised at what I'm not saying. Right? It's in my head, right? He's like, I got some things I want to say. It's the same thing we're sharing here. If some of this is surprise, you'd really be surprised at some of the things we messed up on as parents, right? But it's just learning and growing our way through
And
that.
the last thing I just want to say is that no matter where your listener is on their journey, you might feel like you have messed up. Maybe you don't even know what to do. Maybe you've got one of those great kids that made a bad decision that changed the trajectory of their life, right? Salvation is available to us at any time in life.
Mm-hmm.
It is never too late for us to have a change in our posturing, right? We can start today at being different parents. We can start today at being more intentional. We can start today at building relational equity. We can start today, your kids already know how to potty, or get themselves dressed and tie their shoes, and they may even be living out of the house. And you don't have that same desire or ability to produce in them the stuff at home.
Yeah.
But we still produce, and we still build legacy, and we still build relationship, and you still have impact and influence, whether you know it or not.
Yeah.
So it's never too late to just say, hey, today I'm going to make a change. I'll tell you another book that I would recommend strongly. Stormy O'Martin has a series of books, The Power of Praying, ... Praying Wife, Praying Husband. Have you heard of her books before?
I haven't. No.
Okay.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Great written books, great written prayers. And sometimes it's just hard for us to even think that prayer is the most important tool that we can put in our toolbox for parenting.
Yeah.
And we don't pray really great for our children. Hey, God, be with Addie and Rylan. Thank you so much for them. Help them have a great day. Help them to love the Lord. And that's it. She writes really specific prayers that invites the Holy Spirit into specific topics of your children's lives. And they're really powerful. So like right now, I'm doing the power of praying of adulting children. And I just pray the prayers. I go through the book over and over again. And
That's
it has
awesome.
been so profound in my life. And so I don't want to take away the power of God in all of this and say, okay, we've got this formula and we've got this philosophy. And if you do this and this and this, man, the power of prayer is the most beautiful tool that you can put in your toolbox of parenting. Your knees are the most powerful place that you can be on your face for your children, more than any other tool that you can put in your toolbox. So I just want to say that also,
That's
it's
great.
really important
Yep.
not to take God out of it and just to make it this logical philosophy way of parenting.
Yep.
Right? It is, but it's bringing God into it, inviting him into it, because the power of the Holy Spirit, he changes hearts. We mold hearts. He changes hearts.
Yep.
And that's really important.
Very
You
I
wanna
feel like the
parent
older
with God.
I feel like the older your children get, we talk about this, you actually pray more for them
yes.
because they're not with you. You don't, when they're in your home and they're in that phase of elementary,
All the way up.
Yeah, all the way up from elementary, middle, high. And then once they leave the home, it's like as parents, like you're on your knees more than ever before, right? As parents. And so I love what you said, because I think doing that consistently over time, even when they were at home at a more of a consistent pace, 100% is powerful.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for being on. I
Absolutely.
don't want to take any more time because you guys got busy, and it's good. And we've already been chatting for an hour and a half for
Have
sure.
we really?
Yeah.
Get out.
It goes by very, very, very
Verbal
quick.
processing.
Yeah, yeah.
And
100%.
you have already, you preached, you were
preached
with us
3
last night, you
messages.
preached, you're like, all right, I am out of words.
it's okay.
Hey, real quick, I'm talking about being out of words. She's the verbal processor in the family. You could probably tell, right? Right? Like, one of the things we talk about all the time is that I'm like, hey, babe, I've been in meetings all day, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm done. So when I come home, it's like, silence. Now, when she was a stay-at-home mom in some different periods of our life, I couldn't do that. Now she's serving on staff, she's coaching, all stuff. I get home and she's like, babe, I'm done. And I'm
I'm
like,
going to bed.
You're like, yes.
this is amazing.
You're like, God is good.
This is the best job
So
you've
when
ever
you
had,
said that
babe.
earlier, I was like, I feel you. I feel Zach. So yeah, no, thank you so much. And man, we in the halls today, and after both Friday and Saturday, the members of this church, the people, amazing.
You're doing
Yeah,
great things.
and the culture of the church is just amazing. We use the word just transparent and authentic as we're
Authentic,
talking to
very
them.
authentic.
Tears in the hallways of, I need help. I'm so glad the church offered this last night. I love that, this and that. And so, man, what a privilege it's been for us.
Thanks for letting us be a part of
Yeah,
it.
the last
man.
couple of days. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not even me. We have an amazing team, and the team's just phenomenal. I think one of the biggest things within our staff and volunteers is the heart behind doing it. Like, they just love, we all
you can
love.
feel it.
Yeah,
You
of
can
course
feel
it's
it.
work at times, but we all get that. But it's just
Absolutely.
but deep down, I think everyone, a good majority of everyone, just knows why they're doing it and why they're here and why God's called them to this place. And I think that's just by the grace of God for me. I'm just learning to do my best each day, and I think we're all in the same boat. And to be honest, I'm just trying to keep up with the great leaders around me on this staff. I'm like, I got to keep going just so I don't get left behind here. So no, it's been great having you guys, and thank you so much. And
Absolutely.
for everyone else listening right now, just thanks for tuning in. And like we always say, like, subscribe, comment, do whatever you can to push this content as far as it can go, because how well it does is not, the algorithms are funny. So you got to send it as far as you can. If you have someone in your mind right now that would benefit from this conversation or benefit from this podcast as a whole, send it to them. Send it out there. Like I said, like and subscribe. And we'll catch you here at the next podcast that we release too. So have a great day, and we'll talk to you later.